Hi, guys. This is Mary with Intuitive Refresh. Welcome if you're new. If you're returning, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well. I know it's been a while, and so that's why I'm back. I'm here to talk about karmic knots and anything else that energetically follows with this topic, so anything that is related to spirituality. So I want to talk about this theme, karmic knots, based on sort of my understanding and my experience, my knowledge, as well as blending it creatively with a movie that I recently watched. Now, I want to clarify that the movie that I'm going to um, talk about isn't one that is happy, cheerful, or all like positive. This is a story that has been retold and refilmed in different ways, and you guys may know it and you guys may not know it, but it's a really good story in the sense that it has a lot to share regarding uh, the topic karmic knots. Okay, so this story, I'm no way affiliated with this in whatsoever ways. I'm just sharing my opinion as well as my experience, and comparing my knowledge, my understanding of knowledge with, um, not comparing, but I'm expressing my knowledge, my experience while using this movie as an example. And so, with that, not every example from this movie is exactly in relationship to your karmic, knots. If you know, are looking into that, or it doesn't mean that, oh, it's exactly the same, where if it sounds similar, then if you do that, or what I'm going to be sharing, it's going to like somehow magically, um, it's going to resolve itself, right? There's a lot of complexity to undoing our karmic knots here, but I just want to use this time to talk a bit about it, and to just have a general understanding, okay, about karmic knots, and how one will approach it, um, or work through it. Okay, so with that said, I hope that clarifies some things before we begin. So I want to talk about, just a brief check-in. How is everyone doing? I hope you are doing well. I know the lunar eclipse recently kind of threw off um, individuals' energy. I felt, I really felt there was a lot of, there was this heaviness, okay, and so it just kept feeling like I, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, and so that's why, like, even though I wanted to come on live, I only came on live briefly the day before, but the day after, on the 7th, I was not able to come on live or really just talk about stuff, because it was really energetic, and unfortunately, I did feel like it was more on the spectrum of it being on the darker side than more negative side. And so I felt like if I was to come out and talk, there will be a lot of different types of energy that may cause some different results that are unfavorable to me. So I decided to just opt out and, stay on the DL and take my time to just uh, uh, reflect and think of what I actually want to, bring forth to the next video. So, yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. If you weren't feeling well, then I pray you recover soon as can be for you. Uh, let's see. Oh, solar eclipse, I believe, is also coming up. So, another thing to look out for. Um, we could talk about it another video, but I just wanted to check in with you all. I hope um, if anyone's struggling through anything, please reach out for help. There's so many different professionals out there that can help you. Don't limit yourself. Let yourself have grace and have the opportunity to express and reach out to anyone that you feel called to. Okay, so I'm gonna start with what my own experience a bit to kind of open up this topic of karmic knots to really get us to break the ice. So, I just want to say that there's been so many moments in my life where after I became more awakened and conscious, then I realized, wow, all of those moments were all like karmic lessons, meaning they were lessons for me to learn and to grow from and to really not just say, oh yeah, I learned it, whatever, next. That can be a possibility. Like you can learn something real quick and then move on, but there are series of strong karmic knots and that are very prominent to your life. So very uh, one very strong prominent um karmic lesson in my life is I strongly feel is family. Now, what is family, right? Family's so broad and it's such a touchy topic and such a popular topic as well because we all experience family through different ways. And I'm only sharing what I can share. I'm not going to overshare some things because I want to still respect privacy, okay? So, family is just so big and there's just so much to talk about, but I'm just going to talk about our immediate family, right? Because our immediate family is the one that we so contracted with mainly to really help us grow. Uh, so if you're wondering, like, hey, my sisters, my brothers, my dad, my mom, like, why am I, why am I with them, right? Who, who is, who, who so who is with what like who has what relationship with you and who is teaching you what, okay, what lesson, right? um so really family has taught me a lot. Your siblings, they all teach you something great, right? But each of them, right, they each offer a gift of teaching you something great about yourself and you vice versa to them, and especially your parents too. Your parents each teaches you something that you are. And I'll just say this, really, like, we all have a different type of family. Our families all look different, right? We may not have a mom, we may not have a dad. Our parents may have passed. We may have been orphaned. We may have had been adopted. We may have been gone through so much that we're estranged, or our parents are estranged from us. But what I'm talking about is, our like, anyone who is close relationship to you, that's considered family or guardian, each of them have a different relationship with you, and it's to teach you and guide you to be where you are. So, and really to look at this from a very positive view, I just want to say we all suffer something, even though we all go through, different types of families, okay? Like, we may look like really to like people who have a faux family, like, it may look really nice on the outside, right, picture wise, but family photos, yeah, but there's always deeper secrets into it. And I feel like that's what really brings out the complexity of this whole idea of karmic knots, this philosophy of karmic knots. So, different families may look great on the outside, but there's just so much darker layers or deeper layers, right, that we have to explore. There's more complex layers. Um, I just want to take a pause, let you guys kind of like let that sink in. If you guys have any questions, comments, just, message me too. I'd be happy to help, answer them to my best ability, as well as if you guys are interested in my services too, feel free to message me. I do tarot card readings. I do psychic readings, like one-on-one like this. I do intuitive art reading, where I'll draw out like the psychic impressions of what I see come through. And if you want that painting or, picture that I painted out, I'd be happy to ship that out to you as well. Um, and we could just discuss more about, like, the costs of each, as well as I do energy cleansing and rejuvenation, which is my session of really bringing you to a space to cleanse your energetic field and then recharging you. And this is very deep, deep healing work. It's not just, you're just doing it to do it. It's about going deep, deep, deep into the subconscious and going into timeline too. Okay, so there's a lot of layers to this, where it's going to the deep subconscious, and going to the timeline that you experience any sort of um, prominent traumas that affected you. And we're gonna be the observer, of course. I'm the observer and guide to help you observe, and then take you through, look like take you through to go and do what you need to do, right? Intuitively, with your team, my team, with Angel, with Spirit, and to help um, um, really bring forth what we need to bring to clear up that energy that's blocking you, and then rejuvenating yourself with energy healing at the very end of the session to boost you up, so that you're like, kind of like you emptying a cup, you need to refill the cup, okay? So we're emptying out the stale, stagnant water. We need to refill that cup with fresh, clean water, right? So it's always that dual process, okay? I don't know how anyone else does it, but that's how I do it. That's what I've been called to do with my spirit team, and what I've seen, what I've experienced, learned. And really everything is intuitive based. Okay, so your journey, your healing is not going to look exactly like Lucy, right? If you know Lucy and Lucy's your friend and Lucy referred you to me, right? Everyone's healing journey is going to be a bit different. So that's what I love this work. I love this work. I do this work because your journey is so unique to you that when you find the one person to really help you, it's going to change you and it's going to help you grow and elevate and see that, wow, like if I was able to do this, then I can definitely help others as well. And so heal we heal ourselves so that we can heal others too. Okay, it's a beautiful process. Okay, so you guys will really thank yourself in the end. Okay, so that's kind of what I do. um, so back to where I want to talk about this movie that's going to kind of help us understand what karmic knots are, right? And how we undo it, right? And there are some more graphic things, and it's not to encourage anyone to do it like how the movie does it, but it's to say, hey, there's this uh overarching story that really captured um the ideals, philosophies of karmic knots. So this story that, or this movie that I watched recently, this week, I'm gonna introduce to you, is called Dracula: A Love Tale, which just came out I think like not too long ago. Okay, so it seems like it was released on July 30th, 2025. Um, and the director is Luc Besson. So this film is actually a really good film, I would say, from someone who watches so many genres of films. And let's ground ourselves, right. We watch these films not to like fall into them and just be a part of the story. No, not at all. Okay, let's clear that out. We watch these films to be the observer. We are not absorbed by these energy. We are just here solely to observe and have a higher knowledge or consciousness of or understanding, right, of what individuals are doing, right? We got to separate the emotions of the movies and actions. Okay, so let's kind of ground ourselves here before we go into this story, okay? Because the story is more on the dark fantasy horror romance. So there's a lot to unpack. So I'm just going to go off of my memory because I feel like that's going to be the best. I may in the future, do more of this, taking like, just really taking like movies, films, or art pieces, right? Or like, sculptures, like any art related things, and bringing it into a space to talk about spirituality. So we all may have heard of Dracula, right? Classic vampire, right? Vampire movie. So in this movie, Dracula: A Love Tale, that released in 2025, is really a very beautifully done piece. I feel because it out of all the other Dracula movies that I watched, I feel like this one really like makes more sense. And then I also want to say that um, Dracula is based off of from the 1897 novel from the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. So if you guys haven't read that book yet, go ahead and read it too. Kind of see and compare the two. If you guys are into, reading books and watching the movie and comparing and seeing which one is more of your style, right? But there's just so much layers to this story, Dracula. And so I just really want to share it because it's not to share darkness, but it's to bring light to the dark so that we can unclear this, we can unveil this, that we have always been so afraid of, right? That we've been like hurt, or we've been too anxious, nervous, scared to talk about, right? So let's clear this out, and let's be able to like talk about these shadows. So essentially this movie is pretty much a love story that we all probably may have seen, heard somewhere, right? So the story goes that there's a guy who goes onto Dracula's property to, talk to him about his property, because he's like almost like a real estate agent or something like that. And then he goes and talk, and he has a fiance, and so he goes and talks to Dracula, and then he notices all these weird things, and he's like documenting it and stuff, right? This is kind of like a mix of the story and the pretty much the story, the book and the story the movie, right? So I'm just like gonna briefly tell like a gist of what the story is. So then he goes to Dracula's castle, talk to Dracula. He noticed a lot of weird things, and then Dracula pretty much finds out that his fiance is Dracula's um is the reincarnation of Dracula's uh, wife, right? From way back then, right? When he was in his human form, right? So it's just really interesting that he really he finally found his fiance, and then he takes his fiance. He tries to he keeps the real estate guy captive, and then tries to bring um, the fiance to the place. And pretty much eventually, I hope this is okay. Like, spoiler alert, right? Because I am gonna like say some things that may spoil the movie, but it's really, really just to really teach us, right? To bring us examples to help us understand this better. But pretty much he does eventually, if you know the classic story, and then this movie, eventually he just turns he he turns her into a vampire too. So specifically in this story, right? This film now. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk. Okay, let me strictly just talk about the film so it's not confusing. So pretty much he convinced her, and then she remembers her memory, and then she tells him to turn her, and so he turns her, right? And so they go off, and then here comes, her fiance coming through with these other a priest and these other individuals and the military soldiers, and coming to Dracula's kingdom, and like, just trying to clear out Dracula, right? So that they can rescue his fiance. So I'm gonna stop there. Um, but essentially, the parts that I really want to cover is that there's so much to this Dracula love tale story. Okay, so in the beginning, where So in the beginning, it shows Dracula go into war, and he's making love with his lover, right? And then he goes to war, and he said that he like prays to God pretty much to, and he tells the Pope to really keep his wife safe so that she stays alive and she's not hurt in any sort of way. But what happens is that his wife gets, this is like way in the past. So it starts out like very, very early in the centuries. Um, and so he pretty much goes to battle, and then he wins. But he finds out that the enemy already, took his lover's life. So he gets really upset. He goes to and then, you know, he goes home. So this is the film now, right? Dracula, A Love Tale, the 2025 version. So he goes home and he's like upset, and he talks, and he gets really upset with the Pope, and he pretty much challenges God in this pretty much in this scene, because he's talking about how, if there was a God, right, or if God was watching over them, then like he should be taking care of his hearing his prayer and taking care of his loved ones. So in this sense, I want to break I want to break here from the movie and then talk about us as individuals, right, challenging the higher source. So we are 100% in control of our life. But it's such a challenge when there's so many obstacles, and we are humans, so we are flawed, and we feel that we need to take it out on something, right? Just because we had a bad day. So if we are actually taking the time to challenge higher source or someone else, we are creating that energy. It's like that grudgeful energy, okay? That hateful, resentful energy that isn't actually going to serve our higher self, in the sense that it's going to bring us up, right? Energetically, it's actually going to pull us down, weigh us down, okay? But at the end, you have to choose, even though it's such a, you know, crappy situation, you have to choose that you want to overcome it. So so Dracula pretty much challenges God. And so what happens is that it's not that in this movie, in this film, it's not that he made a deal with the devil, but it's because he challenged God, you know, that he was cursed to just live on for a long time. And I think that makes so much more sense. So in other stories, briefly, okay, so briefly, in other stories, um, Dracula is pretty much told or shown or seen to be making deal with the devil and whatever, right? And that's how he has internal life, whatever, as long as he, do his thing, right? But what happens is that uh in this film, there's this beautiful way of showing these elements of the character, of developing the character. So he actually continues to live on because he challenged God and he was cursed, and he come to be a monster himself because he has already like uh, held on to that dark, dark, deep energy, that, that very negative, heavy energy that isn't serving him, which turns him into a monster, right? Someone who just is like living but not living, because he's soulless at this point, because he's not trusting, um, God in a sense. And I want to clarify too that this isn't like any sort of religious, like, this is not to talk about religion, or like to talk about, anything religious, to, you know to any sort of religions here. It's just a way to talk about, this movie, and, pretty much the general idea of karmic knots. Okay, so by challenging the higher source, he pretty much set himself up um, to be in this position of just being alone. And so that's why he's alone, and he doesn't truly have anyone. And that's why he's considered soulless. And that's why he is, what they portray him to be, a monster, right? And and so whatever he did, he is who he become because of his choice. So in this sense, okay, so breaking away from the movie, I just want to, and then talking about here and now, when we choose to not have any sort of faith, like in the sense of like we're challenging either a higher source, of energy, or uh, we're challenging loved ones, right? That has given us so much nurture, right? Like our parents, right? For example, right? Or like we become ungrateful, and we lash out on the things that we do have. This is where it gets so messy. Like we are actually holding ourselves back. And again, it's about really, it's about reflecting, right? And I feel like most time we don't do that when we're in the position of rage. We're in the position of lust. We're in the position of, pride. We're in the position of greed, right? So there's just so many things that are holding us back. And so we're blinded by those factors. And we're challenging all these other higher source, or these authorities that have given us so much life and love, right? So kind of like this, right? Um, you as a child, right? Your parents, if they were in the position to love and give care to their best ability, but you are still choosing to ignore them, or choosing to be ungrateful. It's kind of like that, like with the whole story of, Dracula here, how he is, of course, if you're gonna, it's like he originally did have faith, and he was child of God, right? But then because he lost his faith, or he was being ungrateful to the higher source, or God, then he took God for granted, and he took that and made it into a karmic knot. So it's similar to that, where our parents or God are kind of like at that level, right? Where our parents and God are the ones who gave us life. They created us, right? But we as a child, in the in the film Dracula, right? Child of God, has taken that and turned it around, and pretty much throw a tantrum and say, "Hey, why can't I have it this way?" Right? So he was saying, like, how could he not, like, pretty much he was saying that he Like it's pretty much on he's in disbelief because he's like, what's the point of this faith, having this faith? Because yeah, he won the war, but his loved one's dead. Like what's the point? So in that sense, in the film, okay, he does take the life of the Pope. So he takes the life of the Pope, and that's where it really initiated the whole thing. He After he took the life of the Pope, then he noticed like he was living and living and living, and he tried to, you know, take his, try to like off himself too, but he could not. Okay, trigger warning. Okay, so if you guys are, you know, are sensitive to this information, please, please, please click off. Don't watch it. Pretty much, he tried to take his own life, and this is Dracula, okay, and the story, okay, it's all fictional, okay. So in the film, which is fictional, he tries to take his own life, but that's the point, that he could not just easily give him exit out, okay. I'm gonna start using so I'm gonna start using exit out as the phrase to let you guys know that it's him wanting to off himself, right? Or take himself out. Okay. And I like, please, 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 like the wordings is, like, I think it's so hard to talk about this topic, but I'm going to save that topic for another night. Okay. And I'm going to be honest, like it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. Um, like I can empathize really. So I want to just say that too. Like all this that I'm talking about is not to be insensitive. It's just to really talk about the story and to teach in a way where it's showing that these are real life, like these these are examples that can reflect real life situations, right? But they're not, but we're just talking about a fictional story here, okay. Okay, so though he tried to jump off, he tried to jump off a building, exit out, he couldn't. Like he would always survive, and that's the point, is that, like, I feel like God is letting him know that, hey, you have to deal with this that you created, right? And so he just continues his life. He tries to find his fiance too, the reincarnation of his fiance. So this is the next part, right? He's on his journey to find his fiance, and he's alive, and he's alive for so many years. And that's why I feel like this part with Karmic Knots, it's so interesting because, like, the philosophy of karmic is that of doing, of working through karmic relationships, right? Is that it's not gonna, the karmic cycle isn't gonna end until you actually choose to want to end it. Karmic cycles are karmic knots are not just gonna come undone because you wait it out. No. You see, like in this film, Dracula waited out so long, like years, like hundreds of years afterwards, and it still wasn't resolved because he didn't choose to want to resolve it. But there are times in this story here where he kind of reflects, I believe, and yeah, like he understands he's been living for so long, but without his loved ones. So, like, what's the point, right? And then when he finally saw that, the real estate guy who came visit him, his fiance was the reincarnation of his ex-wife, ex-lover. It finally triggered and opened him up to actually want to change, it changed the environment, okay? It made him realize, like, I want this. Like, I finally found it. Like, this is what I wanted, right? Like, it's what he's been chasing for so long. And I also want to add that, yes, though our karmic knots isn't gonna come undone by itself, or it's not gonna just be taken and be taken care of, right? Like, out of the blue. It doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity given to you by source, higher self, higher God, source consciousness, right? The higher source. So, in a sense, in the story here, in the film, you see the you see the father, the priest. So there is a father priest that plays a role in here too. That plays a big role in here too. He goes out and he has known about Dracula, and he's kind of on a mission to free Dracula because of his misery. Because by freeing him, then he could free the others, right? That has been, undertaken under Dracula's wing. Okay, so he does this work of God, right? So he goes and try to find Dracula. And so what happened is that he meets um, he meets this this guy who works with the guy who is in that real estate, right? Who is trying to figure out a deal with Dracula, right? So that they could get that access to that piece of land. So he goes to that guy, and then they find out they're looking for the fiance because they say that the fiance is part of this whole thing, right? So then because they want to pretty much ask for the fiance's help to bring Dracula in, right? To lure Dracula in, right? But the point is, Dracula already had one of his associates find found the fiance. So pretty much, he goes and the priest does uh, play a really big role because he goes at the. Oh, let me see how far I want to go in this story. So he goes and he talks to them, and he's trying to free Dracula, right? So I'm gonna pause there. So in our life, he in our life, okay, with these karmic knots, there's always going to be opportunities that comes through to really open up a space for us to repent, or open up an opportunity for us to reflect and to really create a new set of beliefs of what we encounter, to flesh out the old energy, right? So that we're not stuck thinking that this is our life forever. So in this case with Dracula, right, in the film, Dracula was stuck thinking that, oh, he's gonna just live forever, and then you know he's not gonna be able to be free, right? Um, but this opportunity came where all of a sudden his lover reincarnated, right? And was found by his associate. So everything just seems to work out so well. And this is like, and the point of this is, if you look at it from an intuitive lens, karmically, this is to just really set you up. to help you um, have an opportunity of choosing if you really want to grow from this point, right? And so the priest and his ex lover coming into this space, right? The priest and the ex lover reincarnating, I feel was pretty much, I feel like the priest that came through was kind of like the pope that he killed, right? And then the the his his ex the fiance of the real estate guy is the reincarnation of his ex-wife, and these two are individuals who are very important in his life because they're there to free him. And that's why we may wonder, like, why are we in these relationships with our family, with our friends, with our lovers, God, universe, higher source, whoever you believe in. The higher source would not put people in your place if they were not supposed to be there to help divinely, guide you to where you need to be in life. So with this, God gave him an opportunity, okay, universe, higher source. Just because God isn't gonna like clean up the mess, it doesn't mean that he won't present an opportunity to you, okay? And so with this, Dracula was presented an opportunity, yet he doesn't know. And these are just my commentations, my thoughts, my, what I think is like what I perceive it to be. Um, Everyone can have their own perceptions or, commentation or whatever on this. That's fine. Go ahead, do your own video with, with what you know and with safety, okay? But really, these are all my my personal experience and personal take uh, on this story, you know, along with a mix of like what I see working with like my own karmic knots. So, for example, right, the family part, that's that's just so big. Like his family was her, and his family was the kind of like the faith, right, of the like the pope who was servicing him from the beginning, who he killed, right? So that those individuals who has passed, you has passed on, right? Similar energy is going to come through to help you relearn and rework, and if you choose to work through it and heal from it, then yeah, that's you taking a chance at this opportunity and making it work out for you. So in this sense, again, God was presenting him an opportunity. He uh and he took it. Like he took it because if he didn't take it, he wouldn't have pursued, pursued what he did. So pretty much he goes and tells. Now this is the next part, okay? So he goes and tells his associate to bring in the fiance to him, to meet him, right? And he goes and he tries to like low key, get her attention. But, he wants her to, you can tell in the film if you watch it that he doesn't force her. He's actually a gentleman about it. Like he wants her to naturally remember and choose him. So that is something that you can really see that is genuine and very genuine and very compassionate almost, or what's the word? Very um let's see. I would say very honorable. Yeah. So it's actually really respectful, honorable, and genuine of Dracula. Like that is his nature towards her, like deeply, and that's why he doesn't want to force her, right, in the film. So in this film, he pretty much tries to help her remember her memory of who she was to him in the past. And so eventually she does remember, right? And so she remembers him and she remembers their past life and that they were old lovers and etc. etc. So she pretty much begged him to turn her. Um, but you can also see, let me know if you guys watched the film and if you guys noticed the same thing. It's almost as if he was hesitant because anybody can, if anybody's reading between the line, he has lived this life for so long, and then when he finally found her and she wanted to become what he became, it almost begged the question of, does he truly want her to be him, right? And he was apprehensive. Like he didn't want to turn her, I feel. Because if he did, he would have just taken her there and then. But no, he took his time to really get her comfortable and to get her to a level where she understand that, hey, they were lovers, and for her to slowly recover her memory, okay? But in the film, for the sake of time, they kind of sped it up. I feel like they had to because it just, it would take forever. So what happened is that he allowed her time and the choice to go into a space to remember who she was. And so she, through a music box that he has gifted her in the past, he gave her that music box again, and that's what really helps her remember, regain her memory. So, with that, if he truly wanted to just turn her on the spot to be possessive and controlling and to not even be considerate of her love and their relationship, he would have turned her on the spot, right? But no, in this story, he truly, genuinely loves her, that he's willing to take the time to turn it back onto her and say, hey, this is the opportunity, that what opportunity do you like, this is your opportunity, do you want to be, do you want to be in this with me, right? And of course he was low key, really, like you could see it where he was low key like, hey, like this, she is my love, I found her, he's super excited about it. But he also has this version of him in this story that he's like, he's like self-containing himself, right? Think about it. If you were alive for that long and they finally saw your ex-lover reincarnation, like you would kind of freak out a bit too, right? But that's just being hypothetical. It's not real. Not realistic, okay? But just speaking in the sense of, hey, like situational wise, you would probably pick that option too. Like I would be excited, right? Or they would be excited, right? So yeah, that really, that itself is her choosing to want to be with him. And so she chooses him. So again, she is entering with karmic knots. People who are meant to be in your life will, regardless, like even if they're freaked out by you or they don't like you or they don't want you, they somehow will choose to be in your space, your vicinity. They would choose to be doing life with you. they would choose to want to be you, even though you are metaphorically a monster, right? Or you would be whatever that is very, I don't know, like that is different, right? So in this story, metaphor, I feel like like the metaphors behind this whole story is that even though you're a monster, you choosing to accept, it goes both ways, right? You choosing to accept yourself, and then also your lover, right, or whoever your relationship with, uh, choosing to have, it's pretty much choosing to have self-love and self-respect and having compassion for each other, both ways, okay? Because at the end of the day, even though he was a monster, she still chose him. So it's kind of showing that no matter who that person is, if that person, if you and them are meant to be in this uh, relationship to learn with each other, whether it's karmic lessons or it's like other types of lessons, you are going to be put in place to build that relationship or that bond. You're going to have that connection regardless, whether you want it or not. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to contradict the whole like we have free will or it's our, we have, you know, we have the choice to do so. Yes, we do, but eventually like things will just keep rolling out to be that that thing keeps being placed on your path, right? You guys all have experienced that, right? Where even though you say you don't want this, but then you keep attracting it, it's because your vibration is at that level, so that thing is going to keep entering in your life. So in this sense, in this film, because Dracula kept chasing his ex, you know, wife, and finally he attracted it, like he attracted her reincarnation to be there, placed in his life. But it's placed in your life to teach you a greater lesson, okay? So let's take a break there. Let's go into the next part. So eventually he gets with her. He turns her. She's a vampire now, and they both ran off to the castle to be together. And then her fiance is coming after her with the priest and the, you know, the soldiers. So this is taking place way in the past, like the, I think the Victorian time. Yeah. So this is where they all come charging in, trying to, you know, break down the castle and rescue her. But surely she doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay with him because they both still have that karmic tie together, that they are lovers, that they are there to be there for each other. So think about it. The last time they like had intimacy was at the castle. And it's really tragic because it's really tragic because at the end they're both at the castle too. And spoiler alert, okay, you know, um, one of them goes. There, I'll keep that. I won't spoil it yet, okay? Uh, and so it's really interesting that she chose to be in his life regardless. She has not known him for anything, like for so long, but she has always had this innate feeling that that it wasn't right. Like because if you rewind back to the film, earlier in the film, she said she started to question her relationship, her marriage with her fiance, right? Her human fiance, because she just feel like there's a part of her that she doesn't feel that, you know, she feels like there's more to it, right? So those are other signs when you know there's a karmic knot with someone. when you know there's more to life, right? I mean, there's more to something than what it is, and you can't find it, okay? So I'm pretty sure we all experienced this because I myself have been there where I'm like, there's got to be more to this, right? I start questioning, start looking, right? And eventually it helps you go to places to fulfill your karmic knots. So her karmic knot with Dracula, is she is to be his lover. She is to help him. Uh, she because she also has so much love for him that she could not leave him too, right? So I feel her karmic knot was to be the love the love of his life, and that in that film, in that Victorian time, one more time. um and it's for a few reasons, right? It's because yes, she loves him, and then yes, she wants to play a role in releasing him, helping him release him, right, from being in that life, and then to also learn that love, though we will, love in the physical, right, the physical 3D is for only so long, and that if we hold on to these attachments, now this is getting a little more on like a I feel like more on a Buddhist based belief, I believe, that if we hold on to those attachments, right, like love, lust, whatever are like materialistic things, then like that's what's going to hold us back. And that's where we can't rise above. So I'm not saying like, oh guys, like just drop everything and, don't have any sort of appeal to anything, right? No, like we're here to learn and grow, okay? So what I'm feeling is that her mission is to really let go of the lust that she had for him, and that he also had for her, that which caused this whole thing that he and her had to be reunited, okay? So she was also at the end of the film, she was also really heartbroken, but that's a lesson for her to learn to let go of past lovers, okay? For those who are, ooh, maybe I'll come on another night to talk about like past lovers, or like lovers, or maybe talk about reincarnations or like past lives. But there are different soul connections that we have that are karmic, right? In the sense that we are here to learn. I feel like generally everything is for us to learn, okay? Like, even though it's a karmic knot, it's really like, it's not negative. It's just saying there are things to be paid here, right? Some debt to be paid. And not bad, okay? It's just lessons to learn, debt to be paid, so we can close the chapter. So she, in this Victorian time, comes back, and I feel like it's really for her to come and close that, um, close close that story, and that's why she has a fiance, like a totally different fiance, and she meets up with him and go through that whole transformation, of being a vampire and then being back to human, to really show that in this physical 3D, like we can have all the pleasures in life, but at one point we can't hold on to it. Otherwise, it just pulls us back, and it's becoming lust now, where we just keep wanting more and more of it, right? Lust doesn't have to like be per se, intimacy too, but like it is mainly intimacy, but it's kind of like that lust for like just lust for life, right? Like you cannot not have it, and you feel so like there's immense like indulgence in it. So that's her, that's what I feel is her part of this story, this film. And then for Dracula's part is that he is here to be to really let go, okay? Let go of who he has become. And so he pretty much he's like he's in line with what he's doing. Even though it's crazy, right? He doesn't abduct her because she went with her own like free will, but she went with him. They ran off, right? And I feel that there's more to this, okay? Like he decided to uh fight off the soldiers and whatever, and then he goes back to her, and then he goes back to her to protect her because they're like shooting all these canyons to them to the castle. So he goes back and tries to help her, and then pretty much he takes out all the people who were lined up by the door that was blocking her too, or like trying to storm into the entrance. But pretty much he really loved her and he wanted to protect her. But then he sees and he talks to the but before that he talked to the priest downstairs, right, when he was still fighting them. I want to go to the scene where he was talking to the priest. Now remember when I said that there's his ex-wife and then there's the father, right? The priest, the father. I feel like the priest and the father, he he is the one that is energetically was the pope, right? The pope that was murdered by Dracula himself in the beginning of the film. So that that pope or whatever father that was murdered in the beginning, he was the one who was trying to really help Dracula to have um, an understanding of the way of life, the cycle of life, right? Because he was trying to explain him about like how you know it's sort of like how it's the best way I could summarize it is pretty much it's God's will, right? Like it came to be, and so we have to let it be. And Dracula was trying to get him to revive his ex-wife, but he said, "Oh, he cannot do it because once pretty much a life is taken, then it can't, you can't take it back, right?" And so, um, what he was saying was that mm, um, pretty much he was saying that what Dracula wanted was impossible. And so he is here in this century, right? This priest that has been pursuing Dracula for so long, been uh, is is the energy of the Pope that was murdered, and to also help free Dracula from his own doing of his karmic knot. So, um, what is it? So the Pope was, or the father was explaining, and the priest was explaining to Dracula down in the basement. Now this is the film, and it's near the end of the film where he explains to him like you can repent, and that he can um, help others become human again by you know being taking by exiting so that they can return back to normal. And and so you just have to go watch it to have a better understanding, a visual understanding of the story. But I'm just trying to keep it really brief here. So he pretty much explains to him and try to talk him into understanding that, even though he chose this, he can still repent. So at the very, very end, okay, I'm gonna just keep this short and simple. Back to the scene where I was talking, where he goes and protect his ex-wife, right, in the building, and then he already slayed all the soldiers at the door. But you see the priest, and he walks towards the door. It's like this hallway. He walks towards the door, and he sees uh, Dracula and his uh, and the ex-wife, or the reincarnation of his ex-wife, right? Of Dracula's ex-wife. And he sees her and him hugging each other. And then Dracula, it's kind of a funny scene, kind of. Dracula just like closes the door, slams shut in the dude's face. I thought that was kind of funny because it really like gives you that break of like, hey, they need that intimate moment together. So Dracula kind of talks to her and explains to her like, hey, he loves her and whatnot, and this whole spiel. But pretty much Dracula goes out of the room, um, runs out of the room, and then locks it, and then he blocks it from behind. So he blocks it like this, as if he's on the cross. Okay. And I feel like there's just so much, so much good, like, so much good, you know, s- metaphors, elements that like really helps this film become rich versus like just a film that people, those, those comedy films where it's like, oh, it has no like, it's like no brainer, a no brainer film, right? This film actually has a lot of elements and signs that really helps you see that there's deeper layers to Dracula's love tale, right? That's why it's called Dracula a love tale. There's so much more layers, and it's a perfect, I feel like it's a perfect way to kind of showcase, depict examples that can be really talked about, relating to karmic knots or karmic lessons, karmic ties, right? So pretty much he Dracula goes and blocks the door, right? And he does this. So I feel like in symbolism, it was him pretty much being on the cross. Like he's kind of coming back into his coming back into faith. Kind of like how Jesus died on the cross. Him being on the cross, dying on the cross to wash away all the sins, right? That he has committed, because he has turned so many people into his associate, right? And so it's only right if he takes takes him exit out so that they could come back and be human again. And so he goes there, and he's on the door like this, and then the priest has a hammer and um a um a dagger or whatever, and he goes and you know uh on Dracula's heart, and then whoosh, Dracula, you know he he Dracula pretty much dies there on the door. So I feel like with the door being there too, him doing that, I feel like the door was like a door of opportunity for him to go, right? Kind of like when like energetically, when you are you are choosing to go, there's doors for you to go into, right? Into like a light, right? And so what's really interesting is that the way he was positioned in that scene and the way he went. So he allowed the priest to take to He allowed the priest to do what he was doing. I mean, he, sorry guys, he allowed the priest to do the deed that, that he has, um, that he, uh, in this situation, um, needed to be taken care of, right? So that he can go. Now, what's really interesting here, I talked to my partner about this. I was like, didn't the priest take a life? Because he pretty much exited unalive, Dracula. And then my partner was like, well, it's not actually killing or taking a life if he was already undead. So I was like, oh my gosh, right? Because I think that made me kind of real, like that like made me realize like, whoa, there's like, whoa, like like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. And it's not to say that Dracula's life isn't precious or value. It's that he has lived so long and he has not died because he was undead, right? That it's so uh I want to be careful here because I don't want to sound like I'm promoting anything here, okay? Please, 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 if you guys need help, please go and search for help if you feel like there's just so many overwhelming emotions that make you want to, see things differently and not be in this, and to feel like you don't belong in this place, in this planet, right? Please, please, please go seek professional help, okay? I just want to say that. And trigger warning, okay? So, again, trigger warning. There are some things here that we'll be speaking about that may not be as, um, easily, heard or taken by, others. So, please, please, please do your part. Exit out of this video if you have a hard time listening about tragedies regarding, any sort of like deaths, right? So, pretty much going back to what I want to say, and I want to say this carefully, is that because he exited on the cross, right? It's his way of saying, hey, he finally understood he finally understood what the connection was here with faith, with God, with the priest, with his lover. Like he was finally able to give himself back to God. Okay. That's the best way I can say it. He was the best way that I can say it. And there's other ways to say it and that it. That's even better, like for you to understand that on a higher level, right? So I want to say this with a lot of love and spiritual growth and, you know, divine consciousness is that we are we are pretty much a soul that just keeps living and living and living, right? We are multi-dimensional souls, spiritually speaking, and we experience all of these experiences. But if we choose to keep holding on to um, experiences that we cannot let go of when we were on earth, then we will be reborn back to learn the lesson again. Of course, there's no evidence, there's no proof, but if you are spiritually inclined and you're spiritually attuned and spiritually elevated, then you know what I'm talking about, and you know what I'm talking about. Um, so I just want to really talk about this and share about this because it's so it's so beautifully delivered in this film of what karmic knots look like and what karmic uh, karmic like relief looks like. So he examples, okay, but it doesn't mean it's what it is, right? Exactly, okay. For your I'm not saying like, oh, to release karmic lessons then you have to exit. No, no, do not have that thought, okay? This is just a fictional movie that I'm just looking into to really speak about and show, like, really speak about like some examples, but it's not your examples. If you have any sort of concerns, reach out for professional help, right? But this is just me talking spiritually, what I've experienced, seen, and sharing and mixing that a bit with this film that just came out so that we can kind of all have this understanding of karmic knots, okay? So Dracula decided to finally be with God. And so he allowed the priest to do what the priest did. The priest did not take a life, but the priest pretty much freed Dracula's life because Dracula was already considered undead, right? So Dracula is going to find his peace now. And so what happens afterwards is the priest leaves. He's, of course, he does say a prayer first before he did what he did, but then the priest leaves, and then his the ex-wife, or the reincarnation of the ex-wife, she comes and drag his body to the bed, and the bed is right underneath where the hole is, because they shot a cannon and then the cannon hit the, castle, and then it created this like hole in the ceiling, so the light is like there's like a ray of light to Dracula's body, and here they have their exchange of words. And so what's really interesting is that he turns into ashes, and he goes off into the air. And I feel like this is what is so interesting uh because in the Bible, right? Uh there's a there's a term there's a term where we hear, right? Where it says, "For dust you are, and to dust you will return." So you see, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. So when Dracula turned back and he burned from the being staked at the heart, and the ray of light, transforming him into dust. He goes back into the wind as dust. So I think that was just really interesting that they also included that, right? Because it's showing that, regardless of the religious, factors, he um, he really is going back to his origin. And I feel like we all may have heard of this, but it's up to how you want to perceive this. But some people believe we are stardust, right? Like, we have pretty much compilation of like star, like stuff that they found, but minerals, or minerals found in like uh, things that have fallen from the sky. So I think that's really interesting. So it's kind of like this idea of like we are dust, we came from dust, and then we will return as dust. And that's why some people do cremation too, right? But it's about this concept of us returning back home. And I feel like um, the scene where he goes off, his ash flies off to the sky, is pretty much his uh, his part of closing the chapter. and he's going back to be with God. He's going back to be with heaven or whatever, the Heavenly Father, or he's going back to do what he needs to do, right? To because he's in this new chapter. And so I think that was really interesting, this whole film. And so if you guys have not watched it, go check it out. I'm not like trying to promote it or anything, but it's just it wakes you up in a sense of understanding that there's more to this Dracula story, right? There's so much there's so much more layers to this story. So it's up to you if you want to go watch it. That's your choice. You don't have to. If you are sensitive to energy, or you're sensitive to like different types of different types of scenarios where it's related to death, then I don't recommend you to watch this, or I don't think you should watch it, because there's just a lot of other things too. Um, but yeah, there's so much to this that I, feel like I can talk more about, but I'm gonna just close it here because I feel like I I pretty much covered as much as I can, and with this time, it's already like 1 hour and 26 minutes. So I want to keep it as simple as possible, but it's gonna, things can happen. So, tune into yourself, look into yourself, and feel into what other things you are looking into that you want to um, work on, right? Because I feel like that kind of gives us hints to ourself, to elevate ourselves. Now, these karmic knots, they, it's pretty much just a name, but it's like pretty much the lessons, the soul lessons that we have to learn, right? And so, what soul lessons are you choosing to learn? You know, what is it that is so prominent in your life that you have been holding back? And if you're unsure, then don't hesitate to reach out to someone that can help you, or someone that can guide you, or point you to the right direction of who can help you. Okay, don't feel like you don't have a way to you know, reach out for help, or that you don't have an opportunity. You do. We are all brought here on earth to really create opportunities for one another, okay? So as I'm speaking here, sharing this, I'm creating an opportunity for you to really reach out to if you need help, or reach out and I can try to see who in my spiritual field can help you out, okay? So, really, I just wish everyone well. Uh, I pray that everyone sleeps well and that everyone is, going to achieve what they want to achieve, desire to achieve, dream to achieve, okay? And really just want to thank you guys for having tuned in and having followed, and continuing to do so. Please, please, please like, share, comment. I want to have you guys engage with me so that we can learn and grow together. This is a spiritual space, it's a safe space, it's a sacred space. Let's continue to really elevate human consciousness together. Thank you so much and have a beautiful night.